Hey, Adam. Yes. Now, as soon as Richelle joins us, I can definitely do it this time. Oh my God, we are in business. Hey, y'all. It's everybody's talking about how like every single person in the world is Instagram living right now. So, excuse us. Okay, Richelle. Once you get on, I can add you. There we go, Richelle. Yeah. Technical difficulties averted.
Yeah,
Yes. Oh my goodness.
we did it.
You guys, you cannot describe the feeling of 25 people watching you and
For 25 minutes. Try to figure out technology that 7-year-olds really know how to operate. It's cool. It's fun. You did great. You're so graceful under pressure. I got to stress out off screen, so
you're
that was
teaching children, and having to do that all the time. So, we're gonna start talking about, or basically answering your questions. We're gonna introduce ourselves, obviously. So, I'm Steph Douglass. I'm a founder of Open House, along with Christina. We could only have 2 people on this call, so she's in the comments. So please ask your questions, and she's gonna kind of be moderating, but she is here. I'm gonna be representing both of us, and she has signed off on what I say. Go ahead.
my name is Richelle. I am a mortgage lender at Richelle Ouellette Independent Mortgage and a real estate investor, both independently and with my friends Steph and Christina at Open House. We own a property together. Yeah, I'm super excited that we finally made it on here and we get to talk about this stuff.
So exciting. I mean, this is our favorite topic to talk about offline too. So it's cool to be here and answering people's questions. I forgot to tell you about myself too. Investor and realtor here in Austin. And obviously Open House. And Open House is an real estate education hub. We live for making sure people can grow their wealth through real estate. And we love working with first-time buyers, first-time investors. And we are really excited because Richelle, we are all friends before we started all these things. So Richelle and I have been friends for years now. And so it's really cool how this has all come together. So thank you so much for being here. We'll jump right in. Richelle, do you want to go first on the first question that we're talking about? Or do you want to just talk about, like, generally, is it a right time to buy?
Yeah, let's just jump right in. I feel like the question that everyone has is now a good time to buy? So, yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
So, really, it depends. Is the most frustrating but, like, correct answer. It depends on your situation. However, through my experience in the market right now, I've been seeing stuff sit on the market for a little bit longer, which is a good sign for buyers. And I've seen huge price cuts on things that were kind of overlisted. What I saw happening in January, February was a little bit unprecedented for me. It was just like rapid growth, and there was no end in sight. I don't have this busy of January, February usually, and it was like record-breaking month after record-breaking month. And it made me a little nervous for my buyers. We had 5 offers on every property. We had buyers pushing up, and you know this, Richelle, too. We had buyers pushing up the prices 20 to 30K over ask price and signing away their appraisal addendum or their appraisal contingency, meaning they are willing to pay over what it's worth. So that being said, I think this is good for buyers because people were justified in overlisting their properties in February. Now that it's March, they're dropping like 25K, 50K. So
massive drops, yeah.
Massive drops and fewer buyers on the market. So if you are in a position to buy, meaning you haven't lost your job, you have savings, you're feeling pretty stable in your income and in your finances, then I absolutely think it's a good time to buy, and I think it will be over the next 3 to 6 months.
Totally. And I think prices are probably, who knows, we're at the beginning of this, but I think you hit on the sort of main things. Obviously, we're in a pandemic, and that's affecting jobs. Job security is a huge part of this. If you're feeling really good about your job, it's a good reason to feel like it's a totally normal situation. But if there's a risk of losing that obviously puts you in can put you in situation if you don't have reserves in place, and also can make it difficult to get financing if you did get furloughed or had any sort of major changes to your job or income. It's going to make it challenging to actually get approved. I think the other big part of the piece, those are sort of the questions about the person. I think from a, take a step back and talk about the economic side of it and what's happening globally with the economy. Um, Obviously interest rates are super low right now. So if you sort of isolate that and think about the added benefit of purchasing a property right now where interest rates have dropped at least a half a point from where they were a couple of months ago. If you're buying a $300,000 house and interest rates go down by 0.5%, you're talking close to $100 a month difference in your monthly payment, which one is obviously incredible savings, but also is going to increase your buying power and what you would technically qualify for and be able to afford as a home buyer, which is a huge advantage right now, especially in a market where it is competitive and it's hard to find things, at a certain price point in the popular areas of Austin.
Yeah. I think, I mean, from a lender's perspective, that is so valuable. And knowing that interest rates are, I mean, they're at a record low right now, right?
Yeah.
We haven't
Yeah,
seen.
we're up a little bit from like the sort of all-time low of 3 and sub 3, but it's still, we're still low threes, which is historically at the beginning of since the beginning of mortgage industry interest rates of all time, it's the lowest it's ever been.
Yeah. I saw just on hitting on like whether it's a good time to buy. We've obviously bought for ourselves, and we bought investments and rental properties. And someone asked that they want to buy a rental property, but they're worried that it's not going to be a great time to rent property out, which is very valid. I think um, we have someone on our team who's working with some renters, and he said that he's seen rental properties sit on the market for a little bit longer. So that's definitely something to think about when you're buying something. Like obviously, right now is not a great time to close on an Airbnb investment. So if your strategy is to Airbnb a property, you're not going to have income for. We really don't know when the travel industry is going to come back. So it's not a good idea to use that strategy. And if you are going to use that strategy in the future, it's even more important now to have a versatile approach to your strategy, which we've always recommended anyway. But
Yeah.
now is really coming through that like if you're really relying on Airbnb income, you're in a really tight spot right now. Um,
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, though. That's sort of like being versatile and knowing your options is always a good idea. So even if you're, in a very normal, healthy economy, even if you're purchasing an Airbnb strategy house or a long term rental, whatever your thing is, I think it's really helpful to know at least the numbers behind what your other options would look like. So if anything happens, which obviously things happen, are you able to, I hate the word pivot, but are you able to pivot and, reevaluate, change your situation, rent out by the month, rent out by the room? And I think there's plenty of renters out there still. Like I know people are sort of worried about finding renters. I have a house that I have listed for rent right now, and I have plenty of inquiries from people. I'm personally not showing it right now, so that makes it a little bit more difficult. And I have to get creative about creating video and doing virtual hosting, that kind of thing. But I don't think there's a shortage of renters because one, people always need a place to live, and two, the reality is people are losing their homes and losing their jobs, which super sucks. But they still need affordable housing, and you still need a place to live. Um, and they exist,
that's a great
especially
point.
in somewhere like Austin.
Yeah, absolutely. And people's leases are still up. They're still, I mean, there's definitely been a pause in people making big decisions like moving or, moving to Austin. I'm sure that, I mean, I'm almost positive that that has slowed quite a bit in the past month, whereas before it was like something like 150 people a day were moving here. Um, People are putting their plans on hold a little bit. So I have two rentals that I'm about to list for June 1st, and we think that we'll be okay to find renters for them and for those two for June 1st, but we don't really know. So it's nice that you have like a real concrete example of a rental that you're doing right now, and it's
Yeah.
good to hear that you have inquiries because because that's definitely an that's it's a worry, but also if you're buying a rental property, it's not going to be a worry for a long time. So if you bought something right now and you have that extra buffer between when you close on your house and when your first mortgage payment is due. That means payment is due. That means your first mortgage payment's not due maybe till July or even August. And I think we'll be okay as far as rent. People are gonna get out of this like shock of this pandemic, I think, and start making bigger moves when they now that they know all the information. Like, okay, this is happening, we're kind of stuck, but I can still buy a house or I can still move and rent a new house.
Totally. The reality is, like, whether or not you're purchasing a home or an investment, the numbers need to make sense. Like, it needs to work for your financial situation. And I think as a home buyer, I feel very strongly about not, using 100% of your savings to purchase a home and leaving you with absolutely no money in reserves to, you know, fix anything or cover your moving expenses or just like regular life expenses. I think it same obviously goes for investing as well. On either side of the coin, purchasing right now, you need to factor into your numbers a little bit, potentially a little bit more of a reserve or a higher amount of savings in backup, and to essentially have a cushion to cover yourself, in a situation where you maybe can't find a renter for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
um, or again, even home buyer, like maybe you do lose your job 2 months from now. It's really nice to have that money in savings to cover the mortgage and not be super stressed about it.
Yes, absolutely. I think that, I mean, someone asked about being heavily leveraged in real estate. I am very heavily leveraged in real estate, and this has definitely, I mean, I'm fine. I can weather the storm, and that feels really good. But it has inspired me to have a bigger emergency fund, which that's what I'm going to take out of this is like, I'm going to have, 40K sitting in a high yield savings account at all times. And before, me, I'm like, 40K in my account
40K
is
is a
top.
down payment on a
Yeah.
property.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I am buying a house.
Same.
So this, I mean, this is going to be, it's going to change a lot of people's financial strategies, I think, which is not always a bad thing. And obviously are, we don't love financial ruin, but like this is a huge learning opportunity. And I think buying right now, while maybe you don't find a renter in the next month or two, if you can get a good deal, it's worth it to have those 2 months sit empty. If the prices drop as low as maybe we think they will.
Yeah, if you think about that, if the prices are discounted 20 or 30K and you're getting better interest rates than you would have gotten a few months ago, those two factors combined may mean that you can justify, a couple $1,000s to cover that expense that would otherwise potentially hurt your numbers pretty significantly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's see. The questions. I just saw one that was really good. Refinancing. So, do you want to jump into refinancing? Do we feel like we've covered?
Give the people what they want.
Yeah. So, refinancing an investment property and then buying another house. I think
Okay.
you could cover for sure, like dive into refinance because it's a really hot topic right now since interest rates are so low. And then we'll
Yeah.
talk about the buying another home.
The buying process with that, yeah. So are we looking at, is it BC Lane? Is that or B Clay? I don't know who that is. Any advice on
Yeah.
refinancing an investment property and buying home? So are we talking about, I'd be curious, a few different sides here. Are we talking about a cash out refi to pull out money to purchase another investment property? Or just sort of trying to do two transactions in 1 year?
I would
Two
say,
different
I
sides
think
there.
you should talk about both of the difference between a cash out refinance and a refinance,
Okay.
and just a straight up, and then
Okay.
utilizing that cash.
Okay. And I just saw her is okay. Worried, not cash out, worried about impact on credit. I will
Okay.
tell you what a cash out refi is because maybe some other people want to know that, and then I will talk about your impact on your credit. So difference between a rate and term refinance, which is the very standard refi that most people are aware of. These are the ones that you see the headlines for when the interest rates drop and it says, should you refinance your home? And like, you should refinance your home, very urgent. And basically what everyone and their brother just wanted to do based on the recent drop, because we were as low as 3% or a little even below 3% interest. What that means is you're basically getting a brand new mortgage for the house that you already own. With that new mortgage, you're paying off the old mortgage so that you don't have to pay the payments or the terms on that loan anymore, and getting, like I said, brand new ones so that you're locked into what is ideally a lower interest rate. Some people also use this opportunity to renegotiate the terms of their mortgage, which means you're probably doing a shorter term instead of a 30-year mortgage. You might be doing a 25 or a 15-year mortgage, which is really good to evaluate those numbers, I think, because normally one of the sort of downsides of refinancing is that 30-year clock resets. So while you may have just been making payments for the past 4 or 5 years on your loan, you reset that clock and now you're back to 30 years, meaning the whole time the loan before 35 years, which is a long time to be paying interest on a property. So that's sort of rate and term, the kind of normal, what most people understand as a refi. Another option, if you have significant equity, is called a cash out refi, which basically means very similarly, you're getting a new mortgage, you're keeping the property that you already have. And if you have enough equity in the home, you also have the opportunity to tap into some of that equity and take that money out and do other things with it. Some people use this for debt consolidation, which, depending on your overall financial situation, can actually be a really great way to pay off some high interest credit cards, things like that. Um, it can also be used to invest in other properties, which I have done. So I'm helping Christina do right now. And just to give you an example, I'll just run through my numbers on mine because I think it's a really good example of how to use a cash out refi as a strategy to do that. And if this is something that you're interested in, we are having an event on May 7th for the meetup that we do for female investors in Austin. It's actually going to be digital again because that's the world we live in. So even if you're not in Austin, if that's something you want to join, you can do that. And Christina can throw that in the comments because I can't. Anyway, so my numbers, I purchased a house 2.5 years ago in Southeast Austin for $195,000. I did a total gut renovation and I built a casita in the back to add significant value. So, like I said, with the cash out refi, you have to have that equity to be able to tap into it. So, I wanted to force equity by adding value in the home through renovations and through adding the casita in the back. The $195,000 house that I purchased 2.5 years later was worth $350,000, which is a pretty significant increase. So basically, what I did is take out a mortgage against the $350,000 value at a maximum loan to value of 80%. And I was able to pull out, like, pay off my mortgage and was left with about $90,000 in cash that I could purchase a separate property with. I also paid off a little bit of debt that I had left from renovating my house. I had done that on 0% interest credit card, so I was able to pay off some of that and be able to purchase a new investment property, which was an awesome strategy. And then, real quick on the second part of the question, the impact on your credit. Purchasing two houses in a year is basically all that you're doing, or refinancing and purchasing in the same year. That really shouldn't have too much of a negative impact unless you were doing all sorts of other crazy things with your debt as well, as far as like racking up credit cards or just doing a bunch of inquiries in different places. But generally speaking, having a mortgage on your credit is great as long as you're paying it. So refinancing one is going to just sort of adjust the terms on there, but it's not going to impact your score
Yeah.
too negatively, and definitely not in the long term.
Yeah. And she asked how do you know how much to take out, which is kind of a judgment call up to 80% of what the value is. So
On your primary residence,
on your
yeah. So it's
primary.
going to be, yeah, a little bit different numbers if it's a multifamily or if it's an investment property, but on your primary residence, you can take out up to 80% of the value.
So and that's and you can take out less too, which is like
It's great.
your judgment, which is great because then your interest rate is less and you're taking out a lower loan, so that your the monthly payment of your loan is less. So yeah, I think Christina suggested, so to buy or to not buy is the, for those of you just joining, is the question. But we kind of said if you're stable right now is a really good time to buy. I think the zip codes, and when we talk about zip codes, we have a zip code map on our Instagram that you can kind of scroll down. We'll post it again, but it's shown the average appreciation over the past. I think it actually was the appreciation over the past year per zip code. Um, just to say, I own property in 78702, 78721, and then 78764 in Round Rock. Richelle, you're in 21 and 41.
Yes.
So we're very invested on the east side, but there are some really awesome zip codes in Austin that are growing rapidly and that you can still get a good deal. So my favorite zip codes right now, personally, for investment purposes, I have three. No, four. I have four. And Richelle, I'll be curious to hear your favorite zip codes for investing. This
Okay.
is for primary or for investment, honestly, because
Yeah.
I just think they're going to blow up and explode over the next 5 to 10 years. Um, my favorite zip codes are 78753, which is north, kind of northeast. It straddles 35. So there's some of that zip codes on the west side, and some of it is on the east side of 35. 78758, which is in the center, north central, between Mopac and 35. Um, 78758, that one had like 13% appreciation over the past year, which is crazy. And then 78724, which is east of 183. I just think there's east. I've seen east grow. I've lived on the east side for 11 years now, and it's hard to not think that east is going to keep on going because of the growth I've seen over the past 11 years. And my fourth one is 78744, which is southeast. It's right below 71, and east of 35. And that little area, you can still get stuff under 200, close to 200, definitely under 300. And I just think there's huge potential there. So, what are yours?
3 out of 4 of those are on my list
Yeah.
for sure. I like 5-3, but this isn't one that I prioritize. But 5-8 for sure. Love the Domain, love the soccer stadium, love the Apple campus. Residences, and just kind of getting long-term renters in really solid areas where there's good jobs and good schools and good, like great neighborhoods, happy lovely times, which is less about my personal investment strategy or like my life. I have a hard time sometimes with that because that's not what my lifestyle looks like. So those aren't areas that I'm thinking about, but for long-term stable renters, I think those are phenomenal. That's a phenomenal area. And 2-4 and 4-4 are also big, huge opportunities. I think I invested in 78741 because I thought that it would be, well, it is what it is, what it turned into, Montopolis, East Riverside, all of the development that's happening there. My hunch is that 4-4 and 2-4 are the next 4-1, in the way that 2-1 and 4-1 were the next 0-2. And I think if you're willing to, I think those are both, so 78724 being east of 183, feel very strongly about as soon as that corridor, that construction corridor is open, that is just going to completely blow up. And then same thing in 4-4, there's a lot of development and construction happening down there. And what I like about both of those areas is that they are both very accessible for investors if you want to purchase, 25% down investment property, but also if you're like just wanting to get started, which was me, 3.5 years ago, it is a phenomenal place to get in, like you're saying, under 200,000 in a very livable house in a very accessible area, still close to downtown, so close to the east side, close to the airport, in an area that is rapidly growing for a really solid price point that I think you're going to get a ton of equity in the long term.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, agree.
I think 2-4 is going to blow up.
Yeah, for sure. My next purchase will be in 2-4.
I've been looking at some. There's some good ones on the market right now. If you're asking, it's now a good time to
Totally.
buy. There's great deals on the market right now.
That's good deals. I'm so excited to be more flush with cash again. But yeah, 2-4 is a huge zip code, and when I moved to Austin, the line of over which people didn't really buy and things were really cheap was 35, and then that moved to airport, and then that moved to 183. And my guess is that it will then move to Highway 30 or one. Is that 130? 130.
130, yeah, the toll road.
And right now, there are things in the city limits of Austin for under 200,000 in 185 area,
Yep.
that are quality houses, especially
Yep.
for rentals.
Totally. Yeah, and I think also if you're willing to look a little bit farther out, which most of the people that I talk to are, are investment-minded first-time home buyers, so they're still sort of looking for somewhere that they want to live. But I think so those are good areas for that. If you're willing to go a little bit farther out because you're just looking for an investment property and not somewhere that you actually want to live or care about being super close to Austin, I think if you think about Austin as like the center and sort of the ripple effect you described, like where the line has grown,
Yeah.
0-2, 4-5, right? Like we see all that spread. If you're willing to go out a little bit farther, deep east in sort of
Yeah.
Maynard, Decker Lake, like that area. And then farther south as well in Buda and Kyle, those are phenomenally developing areas,
Yes.
where there's still very affordable homes. And again, I think a really good market for long-term stable renters who just need a place to live for a very long, stable time.
Love it. Love Manor. I mean, I'm honestly everything that surrounds Elgin, Leander, Pflugerville, Round Rock, Kyle, Buda.
Yeah.
Buy there.
Yeah.
If you're willing to live there, or if you just want that as a rental, just I mean, 5 years ago you could have bought something in Buda for $50,000, which
Yeah.
is now a $200,000
Right.
property. So
And 5 years from now, you'll be saying you could have bought something in Buda for
yes,
$200,000, and it
yes,
will be a
exactly.
$350,000 property
Yeah,
because that's how it works. Yeah.
yeah,
So I think that's too. Like, I just keep thinking like the question again being like, is now a good time to buy? Is like there are environmental factors, there's economic factors, there are local sort of city of Austin. There's the things we're talking about, job security, but I also think so much of it is about the actual house and like about the actual deal. If you're looking to purchase, again, home buyer or investor, knowing the numbers and knowing how much it's going to cost, and is it a good deal relative to the neighborhood or to other areas that you might be looking. Waiting to find a good deal means you might miss a deal, like a really phenomenal deal right now. You know
yeah,
what I mean? So like saying I'm going to wait a year to do this, what about all the really great deals that are on the market right now that you're missing, because you're not looking?
yeah. I think that's even in a time like this, and I know that like 2008 happened, and that was really scary for a lot of real estate investors. Um, I think it's not ideal if you can help it to time the market. Timing the market is impossible. Even the greatest minds can't time the market. So I would say if you have the money, if you have a cushion, if you have a stable job, then that is the good time. Like real estate goes up and it will dip a little bit and then go back up, and it just has gone up forever. Historically speaking, it has never had like a long downward trend.
Yeah,
Um,
and we're talking mostly about Austin, which Austin continues to have a housing shortage. Like those are
yes,
statistics that still exist, and I don't think that's slowing down anytime now.
yeah,
So,
um, absolutely. And I think, ha- like asking yourself, what is it a good time for you? I am going to buy a house in 2020, and I honestly feel lucky. Like all other things aside, I feel lucky that this happened as far as the real estate market goes, because I do think I'll be able to find a deal better
a
than I
better
was.
deal, yeah.
I mean, when I was thinking about buying it, even just a month or two ago, January, February, like I was saying earlier, it just felt very desolate because I was losing I mean, multiple offers on everything. And now it just looks a little different. So it's, I think it's a better time to buy right now than it was in January.
Yeah, if you can. I mean, think about the house that you and I went to go look at, right? Like that I was talking about purchasing, was listed at 345, 350, and it just came back on the market for 330. So, that's a five
Yeah.
percent drop that in a
Yeah.
market where it's 78,702, phenomenal price like if you're seeing 5%, you don't normally see 5% drops. So you normally see 10% over asking prices. So if you think about that as, situation, I think it's going to create some opportunity for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Creating opportunity. There's going to be opportunity in the next couple months to a year, I would say.
Yeah,
Um,
totally. Oh yeah. I mean, we're at the beginning of this. I think that
yeah,
there will be, tens of millions of people have lost their job, which is like, you can throw that stat out and holy shit, like that's a lot of people, and a rebuilding of an economy that, is going to be pretty intense for the next 18 months to 8 years that it really takes to like rebound fully from something this severe.
right.
And again, if you happen to be lucky enough to be in a financially secure position, this is how you make a lot of money.
Oh, yes. And why is now a better time than a few months ago is I think you may have missed out at the beginning. The So I work with buyers mostly, and it was just a huge shortage. There was so many buyers in the market. People are kind of catching on that Austin is a good place to invest. So there were 7 offers on every property, and I mean, I had clients lose 5 bidding wars just because they couldn't go 20 to 30K over asking, and that's just not happening anymore. There's still multiple offers on properties, but they it's a little bit less competitive, and there, yeah, price cuts. It's going to be there. Statistically speaking, if this many people have lost their jobs, there are people out of the buyer market that were in it 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So
So would you still say, knowing that competition maybe has slowed, obviously, I mean, quite literally can't even show a lot of houses. And many people, even if by choice they could, are choosing not to go view homes or purchase homes. So do you think it's still a good time to sell a house?
good question. Um, I would say just like it's a better time to buy right now, it's a worse time to sell right now than it was 2 months ago. It is a little trickier. I mean, there are fewer people trying to look at houses. Um, I would say it's not. I would, and this is probably what everyone is hearing, which is why there aren't as many new listings on the market in April as there were in March, and as I think there will be in May. But I don't. I honestly, I would not sell a house right now,
Yeah.
personally. What
Yeah.
do you think?
I wouldn't by choice. No, I mean, obviously, a lot of people are financially forced to look at that right now, and
Yeah,
similar to making adjustments if you're a buyer and thinking about having additional reserves and like being cautious about your numbers. I think on the flip side, as far as selling, if you had to sell right now, I think we're both still seeing some like gems go on the market and go over asking and like be a really competitive
totally.
situation, but for the most part your average home is not. It's sitting longer and you're seeing big discounts. So if you are in a situation that you need to sell, you may not have a choice, right? But you kind of have to understand that you're probably it's not going to be the same situation as it would have been a few months ago, because there are fewer buyers and it's a supply and demand question. So if fewer people
Totally.
are out shopping, then it's not going to be as it's not going to drive your prices as high
Yeah,
as it would
yeah,
otherwise.
yeah. And it's just going to be a little bit of a pricing strategy too, of a more aggressive
Yeah,
price,
totally.
potentially, because there are people waiting in the wings. And I've had buyers drop out of the market, just say like, it's not a good time for me to buy right now. And then I've had people come to me and be like, actually, I wasn't planning to buy, and now I am, because they are seizing opportunity. So what we notice a lot is that fear dominates a lot of the of people's actions, and it's kind of a it, it's reinforcing people's fear, and so they're choosing not to buy
Totally.
instead of buy, is
Totally.
what I'm going to.
I love the Warren Buffett quote of be greedy when other people are fearful and fearful when other people are greedy. And the
Yeah,
reality is, like, I mean, I think there's reason to be fearful right now. There's a lot of scary things happening in the world,
totally.
so I don't mean to downplay that at all. But I also think, again, if you're in a position um, of fortune and privilege, which quite frankly you are, if you have a job and have money to even be considering this question right now, then yeah,
Yeah,
be greedy.
yeah. Um, yeah. Oh, hey, Brian. The thoughts on single family versus multifamily. I'm gonna tell you what I think just from a realtor and like investor point of view, and then I want to hear from you as a lender, because there are different minimum down payments for
Mhm,
single family
mhm.
versus multifamily. So I mean, obviously multifamily has more potential for income, and it's a little bit safer because you can have 2 units, 3 units, 4 units up. Um, However, the value in a multifamily property is very apparent. It's obvious that a duplex is valuable. So they're pricier, and they're in really rough condition because they have been rentals for as long as they've existed. So my favorite thing to do is to buy something that isn't as apparently valuable, like a single family home, and turn it into a multifamily or a multifamily-esque income producing property.
A sneaky duplex.
Sneaky duplex. And that is just it's just a easier way to get a better deal on something, and then kind of turn it into what you want it to be. And I like that single family has a lower down payment requirement. So go ahead.
Yep.
What do you think?
Yeah. So, yeah, just I guess echoing sort of the overall difference, single family, multifamily. you and I own a multifamily property together, and then my current, like my first house is a single family with a casita, so sort of 2 unit, not technically a duplex, but still 2 unit. And I will say that I'm very grateful that I have multiple units in all of those properties because 100% of the income that I was making in one of the units just went away. And it's really nice to be able to make income in the other unit to offset that, versus if I just had the one residence and one unit as a single family and all of that rental income went away, then I'd be stuck for a lot more of that mortgage. So it's really nice to have that sort of security buffer there as well when you're thinking about multifamily. From a purchase standpoint, in the lending side of things, yes, as if you're going with a conventional loan, a single family residence is going, as a first time home buyer, you can buy for 3% down, which is phenomenal. If you're purchasing a multifamily property as a conventional loan, your minimum down payment will be 15%, so significantly higher. If that is the situation, I do think it's worth considering potentially an FHA loan, which I don't normally recommend or push people towards unless that is what makes more sense for them, typically because of lower income or lower credit score. But the benefit of a FHA loan in a multifamily situation is that you can still put 3.5% down on a multifamily property, which is obviously great. There's a big difference between 3.5% and 15% down when you're looking at that option. And again, it's a scenario, as in all of this situation, you look at the numbers and you run them. In FHA, you're going to have probably higher private mortgage insurance and some upfront costs that you wouldn't have on a conventional loan. But if it's the difference, if the numbers still make sense for your rental income and for sort of overall investment strategy, it might be worth taking that FHA loan because you can put a lower down payment down, and then a lower down payment, and then potentially after you've created equity, stabilized rents, given it a few years to appreciate, potentially added value, maybe you can turn into a sneaky triplex. I don't know. Refinance out of that into a conventional loan so that you don't have the PMI that you would from an FHA.
Yeah. Yes, you have to rent it. You have to live in it to put 3% down on a rental property. You have to occupy the property within 60 days of closing. Is that right? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Um,
intend to live there for a year.
yeah. So, and if you aren't planning to live in the property, can you talk about that? For a multifamily property, what's the lowest down payment?
25% for an investment property.
But
Yep.
single family investment property, what's the lowest?
20%. So, well, technically, you could go lower. You can do 15% down payment on a single family investment property. You're going to see significantly higher interest rates. So usually, you're paying so much more in a monthly expense that it's probably not worth it. That will really hurt your cash flow numbers. So I think it's worth waiting and or finding a different deal that you can afford a 20% down payment. And then just in general with investment property and down payment, every 5% that you're putting down is like between 15%, 20%, and 25% is going to impact your interest rates. So the more you put down, the lower risk the loan is considered by the bank. So you'll get much better interest rates, which and significantly better cash flow on a higher down payment. So I think it's worth considering having 25 to 30% of your overall purchase price so that you have a 25% down payment, closing costs, and reserves as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. And then what about second home or vacation home?
Vacation home. So vacation home will be 10% down. There's some limitations there. It has to actually make sense as your vacation home. I had someone ask recently, they live in Round Rock and they want to buy a quote unquote vacation home in downtown Austin. That one's a little bit of a stretch. It's the kind of thing like potentially if you're buying a house right next to where your office is and you lived in Round Rock, like maybe, but the reality is most underwriters are going to look at that and be like, that really feels like an investment property in an area where you could get a lot of rent for investment. I think the other thing to know about purchasing what is considered a second home or vacation home on that as a loan, one thing would be that you are getting great interest rates as part of the deal. There is 10% down, and you're seeing comparable rates to what you would as a primary residence when investment property rates are much higher. But also important to know that we cannot count any rent or rental income from second homes. So even if you're Airbnb that out, or if you had plans to like rent it out part time, we cannot count any of that rent when we're looking at the mortgage on your debt to income ratio.
Yeah, and that's the 10% down payment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an important distinction because in an investment property, you can count the rent towards
Right.
your income,
Right.
um, which raises your buying power because your debt to income. So that is super helpful. So I have leveraged as an investor, I've leveraged the minimum down payment on a primary residence, and I've done that 3 times. So I bought a house. Um, the first house I bought, I'm actually sitting in that house right now, but bought the house in 2013, lived in it for 2 years, and then I bought another house with 5% down to move into. Lived in that one for 2 years, and then bought a third house, 5% down, moved into that one. So like it's okay to kind of roll your primary residence that you've lived in for a while into a rental property, which gets you around that 20% down payment.
Yep.
So
Totally.
um, the reno process, that's fun. Um, Richelle and I are really into reno, and we both are very, and Christina reminds us of this because Christina is less likely to do things herself. Like she's self-proclaimed not that handy, which is kind of amazing where she is for not being quote unquote not handy. But Rochelle and I do a lot of it ourselves, and we're working on that. We're trying to hire out a little bit more. Um,
Outsourcing.
yeah, outsource. But the process and the cost is so variable, so it's a little bit tricky. I've done a renovation for 30,000. I've done a renovation for 100,000. But it depends on the property and what your plans are, and then also your taste in finishes, because the range between a low end finish and a high end finish is like way larger than
Massive.
you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
You can't believe it.
You can
Um,
tile a shower for like $100 or $10,000. Like,
Truly.
it's bizarre. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So that's a little bit tricky, but the live-in flips, and I like did it once and promised I would never do it again, and I'm doing it again. It's a little hectic. So if you have that capability, it's awesome because you're both getting to live in the place that you're working on. Because if you're not living there, you're paying for it, and as well as somewhere else to live.
Yeah.
Um, but that's a strategy really common to use, the live-in flip.
Yeah.
Um,
I would say if you're gonna do it, my thing I would add, like if you're doing a live-in flip, as someone who's done, yeah, a couple of renovations of full gut, lots of handyman work, and also grew up around every house that we ever lived in, and so
yeah,
that's part of why I was able to do that, is because I grew up being around it, was familiar with the process. But living in a house when it's under construction is terrible. It's awful. There's dust. It's dirty. It's like cluttery, not just like dusty dirty, but there's just like crap everywhere. There's people walking through your house unless you're doing it all yourself, or you just have like piles of your own shit everywhere. And it always takes longer than you think it's going to, and it's pretty miserable. So if you have a
that's very
stomach
true.
for, like, I mean, it is. I'm not gonna
No,
sugarcoat
it's
it.
true.
I
It's so
you
true.
know and I like, I have slept on an air mattress on a concrete floor because I was willing to do that to make the house work for
Yeah,
me in my situation. If you are not comfortable in that situation, which to be clear, I wasn't comfortable either, but it was like worth it for the long term,
right.
um, then yeah, maybe consider it. Otherwise, I would find other ways to not do a live-in flip, because it's terrible. So things like buying a duplex and doing one side at a time, I think is a phenomenal strategy with
Great
this.
strategy.
And then also huge fan of renovation loans, which allow you to finance up to 6 months of the mortgage payment into your loan, so that you can really, not be paying mortgage and rent, but living where you were already living, and then working on the property, not in it, so that in 6 months when it's done, you can move in and just then start paying the mortgage.
Totally. I love a renovation loan. I've had multiple clients use them. Cons to renovation loans are interest rates a little higher,
A little
right?
bit higher. Yep. But you
Um,
can refi out of that when it's done. But yes.
yeah, and that's a the renovation loans, you're wrapping the whole renovation into the loan with the property.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really nice option for people who don't have a huge amount of cash,
Mm-hmm.
to do the renovation afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And so think about that if you're thinking about like buying a fixer upper.
Yeah.
Um,
I love that. If I like a scenario, if you're thinking like again, sort of looking strategically, what you're talking about, the sneaky duplex or looking for options, I think this is a really great way to find properties that you can create value to and then leverage the bank's money to do that. If you think about if you're buying, you're shopping, let's say in a three to $400,000 price range, and we're talking 3% down, you can purchase a house for $300,000, do $100,000 of renovations, and still only put $12,000 down on the house.
Right. And then the added value is insane. I mean, if you put $100,000
Right.
into a house, and so you're 300K for acquisition, 100K for renovation. I mean, you have
Yeah.
a $500,000 house
Right.
plus, maybe even 550.
Which then you're refinancing out. You're reducing your interest rate and also pulling off PMI because you've created the equity and the repairs
Right.
that you've done. We
Right.
could do a whole talk on this one.
I know. I love it. I mean, renovation is so powerful, and we've built such amazing wealth through being miserable sometimes, and even renovation when you're not living in a house can be really stressful. You want to lay on the floor and you want to cry, and you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're willing, it's be uncomfortable now so you can be comfortable later.
Totally.
Reno loans take place of a traditional mortgage. Yeah. So that would be like a renovation loan would be the full entire mortgage. And that's just one loan, right, Richelle? It's not two.
Yeah, it's one loan, one payment. It's everything wrapped all in together, which is the nice thing compared to like getting a home. So in that scenario you just gave, right, of $300,000, you're doing $100,000 of renovations. Your alternatives might be buy the $300,000 house and either pay $100,000 in cash for the renovations, which that's a lot of money, or try to get other financing or outside loans. And construction loans are going to be significantly higher, so you'd be looking at probably 6 or 7% versus the 4 or 4.5% you might get on the renovation loan.
Totally. I think that's a great way to look at it. And putting all that cash into something as an investor, with an investor mindset, that's something you can keep that cash, buy another house, and do this multiple times if that's your goal. So I saw someone talk about an ADU or a casita. An ADU means accessory dwelling unit, and that's a little back house. Richelle has renovated a shed in her yard, and I just recently, it's about to wrap up, built a tiny home from scratch in my backyard. So that is a great way to turn a single family property into a duplex. It's essentially two houses, two rental incomes in one. It also, just from my experience in working with buyers, if there is a livable or even something you can turn into a livable structure in the backyard, the value goes way up, it's funny. Like people just really
buyer value, I would say. Like
buyer value,
unfortunately, doesn't have a huge effect on the appraisal. We're finding, but buyers obviously want that rental income as well.
They love the idea. They love the rental income. It's kind of already there for them. What we want to empower, like our community to do, like Open House and Richelle's community, is to think like that instead of being tricked by like, oh, this is already here, I can do it. But why not think like, okay, I can put one in there. So mine. And you can talk about your budget too, but my budget, I wanted to spend under $30,000 for a 12 by 20 tiny home with a bathroom and a kitchen. So full kitchen, full bathroom, and a loft. And we are under budget. We're going to be under 30K, and we did a lot. We did quite a few of the projects ourselves that we were planning to hire out so that we could stay under budget. But we did a pier and beam foundation. So yeah, it's very exciting, and I'm planning on getting around $1,150 a month with all bills included. So
that's awesome. Are you going to do a long-term renter?
Long-term, I think.
For now.
The location that I'm in right now is not like terribly great for Airbnb yet. It will be, but there's it's just not there yet. But yeah, and Christina just reminded me the lot big enough for an ADU. The lot has to be 0.13 acres or higher.
Which is what, 6,200 square feet?
5,750.
57. Okay.
Yeah. We're about to get kicked off, I think. But really quick, do your thank you mucho more. Richelle, do your numbers really fast on yours.
Oh, on my casita. So mine's a little bit different because I already had a shed structure in my backyard. So I had a 12 by 16 foot shed, and shed is generous because it had like 12-foot ceilings and kind of, like a vaulted ceiling. It already had electricity and it already had solar on the roof. So I walked into a situation that, there's a lot of base costs there that would have been pretty significant if it didn't already exist on the lot. But I will say that's also what attracted me to the property. So when you're talking about looking for houses with an investment mindset and thinking about sneaky duplexes and how to create value, like I walked into this backyard and Steph nor Christina was my realtor at the time because I didn't know them. Otherwise, they would have been. But for sure, my realtor thought I was crazy because this yard had 4 sheds and a shipping container. Like a normal person probably would have been like, "What the hell is happening here?" And I just saw opportunity. Like I saw money, and I knew that I could monetize uh, the shed by turning it into a livable space. And so that is what I did. So my overall cost was right around $18,500. And I also did a lot of the stuff myself and worked with like not a contractor. I worked with I saw Pat. He's on maybe on this still. I don't know. He got off, but he came here. But a friend of mine who was sort of handyman helped me with the stuff that I couldn't do. So I paid cash to him for labor. And then I did the rest on 0% interest credit cards, which I mentioned I finished paying off when I refinanced my home, which was great. And yeah, for $18,500, I built a structure that earned me $24,000 in the first year of operations in Airbnb. So really phenomenal return.
Yeah.
And Christina made a really good point too in the comments that yes, Pat, that if you have a contractor, you will spend a lot more than that. Steph and I are both really, hands-on, very resourceful, very crafty and hustler attitude
Yeah.
with this. So, we've done a lot of the work ourselves, and that will have significant savings. But if you think about, I don't know, I've seen bids for this for friends that I've consulted on, or clients that are doing renovation loans that include an ADU, which that's a fun fact. You can actually finance an ADU into a conventional renovation loan product. So huge fan of that. But I've seen those bids come back as high as $150,000 to build. I mean, in this case, it was you. What comes down to budget, what your budget is, and how creative you are willing to get to make that happen.
Yes, exactly. And I think that when you said that we're crafty, I always forget, like, people are charging so much more than what we're paying because we're kind of piecing it together. I sat and I called people about the foundation. I got the lowest price for foundation, and a different person did the framing. A different person, I kind of pieced it together, and that can
Like
be
you're basically contracting. You're the GC.
I'm basically contracting on my own. So, and you can do that too, and have a job and own a company, and like it's not necessarily a full-time job, but it is does not come. It's a lot of work. It does not come without its headaches.
Yeah.
So,
but I think like anything, if you're willing to ask the right questions and do the right research, people ask me a lot, like, how did I know how to do things? How do I know how to tile a shower? Like, University of YouTube is how I learned how to tile a shower.
Exactly.
Like, I'm just willing to like take some of those risks that people are afraid of. But the reality is there's so many resources out there. And if I didn't know something or couldn't find something, I would just find the right person to ask who I knew would have the answer.
Yeah. Tenacity, grit.
Yeah.
Pure scrappiness.
Pure stubbornness, really, if we're being honest.
And Sydney asked what you charge for rent. You Airbnb'd that, correct?
I did Airbnb it, yeah. So that's the one right now I mentioned. Like, I'm grateful that I have 2 units because that Airbnb is 100% empty, $0 in earnings in April, which is a bummer. That's nowhere near what I'd been getting. Which I think you and I have talked about this. I'm proud of you for putting a kitchen in yours. My casita is a little bit less rentable as a longer term unit because there is no kitchen. So it makes it a little bit difficult to be versatile with that strategy. Though I have had longer term renters in there who are totally fine with that when Austin's restaurants are operating normally.
Yes. Yes. I have a studio also without a kitchen, and that's exactly the reason why I versatility.
Yeah.
What are the ways? And that's, it does come with practice. And anytime me or Richelle walk into a house, we can see 6 different ways to produce income from the property. Yeah. Whereas that's not the mindset, not the mindset we started with. We've definitely honed that in like going into every house in the
and I'll bring that up. Someone asked about the church too, because I think we looked at it through that same lens, right? I think some people know that we bought a church in 78721 in January that we've been working on, which I wish I had a lot more to report, but this one is the first property that I'm doing legally, fully permitted.
Oh
So
man, we're getting raw, uncut.
yeah, all of the reasons that I haven't done my other projects with permits are like coming through here, because it takes a lot longer. Honestly, if I didn't have to pull permits for this church, it would be done now,
Right.
and be rentable. But the reality is we've had to jump through a lot of hoops with like demoing part of the building, various permits, getting an architect on board, getting all our drawing sets in. So yes, it is officially the church. That is a very different situation. So I think it is also helpful to consider. We're talking about $18,500 or under 30K to build a casita. Like I do, don't throw me under the bus and report me to the city, but I do feel like it's important to be transparent about the fact that we're getting creative with that. And I didn't go through the whole process of having a contractor and getting everything locked in place that way.
Yeah.
Um, but the church too, we first walked in and it was a 3-bedroom. So someone had already started some of the renovations on it to turn it into a single family residence. It had been framed out as a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. And like Steph said, we're constantly trying to find ways to add value. And so first thing I saw was like a small room, but a very obvious 4th bedroom ad. And then a small space that we could add a 3rd bathroom. So increasing value by adding a bedroom and a bathroom in the same square footage without having to do any additional square footage or add on. And then also, as we're thinking about the Airbnb strategy, which hopefully is still viable, by the time we get the project done. Really,
Yeah.
banking
Uh,
on that. But again, also grateful that we have alternative numbers where it still makes sense
yeah.
financially, even if we had to do a long-term renter rent by the room
Totally. And
situation, we'll still cash flow.
honestly,
But
um,
go ahead.
well, sorry. I was going to say, in regards to seeing if Airbnb is still viable, um, I think it will be less saturated because I've seen a lot of Airbnbs come on the market. People
On the
can't weather
market.
the storm when they're
Totally.
dependent on Airbnb
Totally.
income.
Yeah, and they're
So
really
people are
leveraged.
putting them on the market or leasing them long term. So that's kind of exciting for me as an Airbnber who will continue to create income that way. I
Yeah,
think it will be less saturated.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, and so banking on that and thinking about Airbnb, we wanted to, even though it's one unit, we're basically still splitting it into two because we want to have the option to rent it as 2 units if that's what's going to make more sense. I'm hoping that it still rents, all together as one unit. I think that will be a little bit more profitable for us, but we have the backup plan of knowing that there's a second unit on there. And also, part of the research that we did up front was understanding the lot size and what additional structures we could build on that lot, which we can have another 1,100 square foot building, which, in phase 3 of this project will be built out as a third unit essentially
Right.
that we can squeeze into this small lot in East Austin.
That's another really awesome point is phases. Like you don't have to do everything to the
Yeah.
house as soon as you buy it. Like buy something with potential with a big lot and do one bathroom and then do the other bathroom and
Yep.
think about it in phases makes it a lot like breaking it into pieces. It's great.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
we do our own demo. Yes, demo is the most fun part and it's
It's expensive. So I think it's a really
expensive.
solid way
Yeah,
to save money.
yeah. Um, okay, so I think we need to wrap up because they're gonna kick us off soon.
Yeah, and also we would talk for 5 hours, and
I
people can
know,
come
I
and
know.
go as they want, but probably we should.
Yeah. So we will come back for sure to do this again because this was really
Yeah,
awesome. Oh my
tons.
god.
Yeah,
But we will jump on the phone if you need to. So Christina, I don't know that she can post the links right now, but openhouseaustin.co and Richelle Ouellette dot no, what is it?
Richelle. It's just Richelle.Loans/schedule. It's in my profile. If you go to my profile.
Okay, yeah, link in bio, I guess.
Yeah,
And we will gladly talk about your specific situation.
totally.
We
Yeah, let's run numbers.
Yes, we love it. We obviously can talk about it for way too long. So, bye,
Yeah.
y'all. Thank you so much again. Thank
Bye.
you,
Thanks,
Michelle.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.